Thank you again for taking the time to speak with us. And all right, first question I really have for you just concerns gold right now. You know, you're on the record with Business Insider making a great call saying it would be normal for the price to come down to 1,200 or 1,300 an ounce. Is there any reason fundamentally that you think it could go lower than that?
Well, fundamentally, the fundamental reason could be the market. Markets usually go too far on the upside and they go too far on the downside. So if you start having people getting margin calls or getting scared or getting hurt, then yes, it could continue to go down. But I don't know if you call that fundamentals or market. But there is a lot of gold out there that people have bought in the past decade, and some of that could come to the market as people get scared.
Now, do you think this is a likely event and so enough that we should consider hedging? If we have a big position in gold, is it worthwhile hedging some of that on the possibility?
Well, I was hedged some earlier. Unfortunately, I didn't stay with it long enough. I closed them very quickly. I don't know. I'm asking me about market timing is a waste of your time. I'm the world's worst market timer. I'm the world's worst trader. So I don't know. I have to leave that to other people.
Well, moving on from gold, I wanted to get your opinion on the U.S. housing market. Do you think it's a legitimate recovery, or you just think it's another bubble forming based upon just the runaway money printing by the Fed?
I'd hardly call it a bubble yet. I mean, it's recovering, but it's recovering for artificial reasons, yes. I mean, you know, they're pumping huge amounts of money into not just in the U.S., all over the world. That money's sloshing around, and so we do have an artificial recovery. I mean, you give me $1 trillion and I'll show you a very good time. And some of the people are having a good time right now. But it is definitely artificial.
Do you think it's worth trying to benefit from the upside, or do you think it's just too risky to even try and time when the Fed might cut off the floodgates with the stimulus?
I'm not smart enough to know. They're not smart enough to know. They just react to events, unfortunately, as we've seen over the past few decades. I mean, the last decent central banker in the U.S. was Volcker, and he's been gone for 26 years now. So they're just going to react, and they're going to make mistakes, more mistakes. You look at Bernanke's record. Since Bernanke's been in Washington, he has never been right about anything. So I assure you, whatever they do, it's going to be the wrong thing.
Do you think there's anything that Bernanke could do to take the U.S. government and the economy out of the tailspin that it seems to be on?
He could abolish the Federal Reserve and resign.
Somehow, I think that's pretty unlikely.
But you know, America's had 3 central banks. The first 2 disappeared. This one's going to disappear too because, you know, between Greenspan and Bernanke, they keep making so many mistakes that this one's going to disappear too. Now, of course, he's not going to resign, although he should if he had good sense, and close down. You know, a world without central banks has problems, but a world with this central bank and these central banks has worse problems because, my God, they're printing staggering amounts of money. They're buying huge amounts of debt. They're putting huge amounts of debt on their balance sheets. You know, these central banks these days are not like central banks of old when they did what they were supposed to.
Right.
No, this is be worse.
In your book, Street Smarts, where you talk a lot about how there's historical patterns that governments, they get into similar traps, they overreach like the British Empire, they spend too much, they tack on too much debt. You know, America, like you said, certainly falls in this category. Do you think that there's any likelihood that the U.S. can avoid a full-blown collapse? I mean, do you see that eventually happening? Is America just doomed?
America's the largest debtor nation in the history of the world, and it's getting worse at the rate of, you know, trillion dollars a year or so. So no, there's no way that America can pay off its debt. It's going to default one way or the other. There's more than one way to default. You can pay everybody back, but you can pay them back in worthless money.
Right.
You know, it's physically impossible. It's humanly impossible for America to pay its debt. Eventually, the market's just going to stop putting up with us. You know, it's happened to every great country in the world. They overextend, they overreach, and then they run into problems. It's going to happen to us too.
Yeah. Worst case scenario, what do you think happens, and how would an individual investor prepare for it or protect against it, aside from leaving the country, perhaps?
Well, you don't necessarily have to leave the country, but everybody has to make their own decisions.
Right.
I cannot make the decision for anybody. But the best thing is to invest in what you know. I don't know, you know, everybody has expertise in something. Some people know a lot about wheat. Some people know a lot about shoes. Some people know a lot about something. The best thing to do is to figure out what you know best, focus your efforts there, don't listen to somebody on the radio or on the internet because, you got to stay with what you know, not with what other people know. And that's the way you're going to survive all of this. And many people will even thrive as long as they pursue their own expertise, their own field of knowledge.
Moving on to just the dollar. I mean, we've talked about the government here. Do you think it's inevitable that the dollar is going to lose its place as the world's reserve currency? And if so, how soon do you think that could happen?
Well, America is the largest debtor nation in the history of the world. The debts are going through the roof at a rapid rate, so of course it's going to happen. You could not name any currency which has survived forever, and the U.S. dollar will go the same way that every other world currency has gone, or every other medium of exchange has gone.
Yeah, I mean, do you see it happening, potentially in the next 3 to 5 years with news that, China and Australia are going to look to do direct exchange?
The Chinese are already doing direct trade with most of their neighbors, in fact. The Russians, right. Nearly everybody who's in the area now does direct currency transactions with the Chinese. They're expanding. In fact, today they announced again that they are expanding the use of the renminbi, and it's becoming more and more freely tradable. So it's happening. I don't know how long it will take. All I can do is watch what's happening in the world. I can see that America, fewer and fewer people are using the U.S. dollar. More and more people are looking for alternatives. And yes, the dollar, unfortunately, I don't like saying it, given that I'm an American and a taxpayer and a voter.
Right.
I don't like it at all, but one has to deal with facts, not with one's wishes.